This is a follow-up about the M3baru video I did last month. I had so much more footage and images, and I wanted to talk about what went into shooting that trip. This is sort of a behind the scenes with a few practical tips based on my own challenges that I encountered while shooting and editing. You already saw Daniel Sloan's perspective on the car and the trip, but I have to have the last word. In addition to making the video, I shot a ton of photos for a story on FCP Euro's website. So I was trying to simultaneously shoot photos and video footage for all 5 days. My goal was to really capture the car in a lot of different types of environments. I knew we'd be going to desert and forest and mountains, and in the end we decided to take a detour to the Oregon coast. I expressly did not want this to be a road trip story. I wanted it to be a story about the car, told in a variety of different settings, to show that this car can handle anything and to give an indication of how this car is going to be used. Not all Safari-built cars stay on pavement, but some of them do, and I wanted to show as dramatically as possible that this car gets dirty. I tried to pack really light, so instead of bringing 2 Nikon DSLRs like I usually do, I brought only one Nikon plus my Panasonic GH5 for shooting video, and a GoPro, and a drone. Altogether, it's not a ton of gear, but it's a lot of moving pieces to keep up with and use and keep fully charged up. I immediately regretted not bringing the second DSLR. I love shooting with 2 cameras. It's definitely one of those if you have the means things, but it saves you from having to change lenses as much, which helps in dusty places, which is where we were almost exclusively on this trip. I mostly shot with the 70 to 200 millimeter for everything because I love how cars look through that lens, and since this was a car-centric feature, I was really focusing just on the car. But if I wanted more landscapes, I would have had to put on a wider lens a lot more frequently. Always make sure you have some air or cleaning tools for dust. Being out in the desert is tough on your gear. I didn't realize that taking off and landing a drone from dirt roads can jam up the gimbal with dirt, so it was really helpful to have a brush and an air blaster and alcohol wipes. This car is about action, so I knew I wanted to get a lot of panning and motion shots. I'll probably do a video about panning at another time, but for now, the basic challenge is trying to find a balance between low shutter speed, which gives you dramatic blur, and a high shutter speed, which looks less dramatic, but you have a greater likelihood of a sharp photo. Shoot a bunch of pictures, take a look, and if you have some sharp ones, then you can slow down the shutter and take a little bit more risk. If you look at what you have on the camera and none of them are sharp, you need to increase your shutter speed and sacrifice some motion blur just so you have some shots that are usable. Another complication with shooting panning shots of a car on a loose surface is that the back of the car is rotating in the slide. This makes it even harder because the car is moving on an axis in addition to moving past you, and the risk is that you'll do everything right to get a shot where something is sharp but it's the wrong thing. Maybe it's a door handle is sharp but both the front and the rear are shaky. That's still a blurry shot. It's like a portrait of a person that's focused on something other than their eyes. Because this was on dirt, the car kicks up a cloud of dust, and that helps sell the sense of speed regardless of the shutter speed. So for this shot, I was looking down from the edge of a hill down into some switchbacks hundreds of feet below, and I pretty much only had one attempt at it because Daniel was going to drive back up after one corner. So I shot at a high shutter speed. It still looks fast because of the dust, so that helped a lot. The car was clean for half of the first day and then quickly became covered in dust for the rest of the trip. This made it a lot more interesting to shoot, and it fit with the story. The M3baru is all about function, and it's meant to be abused. The dirt texture just made it a more interesting subject. You can see where the airflow moves around the car by where the dust buildup occurs, and I love how the rubber seal around the wheel arches became almost white. With the M3baru, I especially was drawn to shooting the car on the side, front, and rear angles, kind of straight on. It just looks so correct. And my impulse was to reshoot these perspectives at every location we went to. So try to be conscious of any tendencies you may have to repeat yourself. Prepare a shot list ahead of time and try to mix it up If you see an opportunity to get a unique perspective, take advantage of that. For this video shot, it was with a drone, and anytime you have a drone shot, you don't have audio from it. It just doesn't record it. It would be unusable because of the noise. So I pulled the audio from a different slide at a completely different location and combined them. Not only is it believable to the viewer, it's believable to me, and later in the editing process when I was rewatching this, I completely forgot it was faked. Our trip was in the summer, so it was really hot in Eastern Oregon. If you're a golden hour junkie like me, that means the days are long if you want to get that good light near sunrise and sunset. Daniel and I travel really well together. It's a true collaboration, and over a bunch of trips we've gotten it down to a science. He plans the locations, the timing, so that it puts us in a fantastic scenic place right at morning or evening golden hour. It enables me to capture the best possible photos and videos, always in the good light. One thing to consider is that the sunset may be 9 p.m., but in the mountains, you might be in the shadow well before that time, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just another factor to consider and plan for if you were hoping to get that low, direct sunlight. On our first full day, we went from Hat Point in the morning down to Snake River in the evening, and it was such a long day that I was really exhausted and beat by the end of it. So that was a good reminder to pace myself and conserve some energy. The main event of this trip for me was the desert, which was planned for the evening of the following day, and I really wanted to be fully refreshed for that. When we finally made it to the desert, it was just amazing. I was overwhelmed. I'm losing my mind. In any landscape, but especially in the desert, when you're shooting a car, make sure you have a good separation between the roof and the horizon. If it's too closely aligned, it looks weird. It looks like a mistake. As a general rule, you always try to make things look deliberate. Also, always bring a step stool to get shots from higher angles. At the end of the trip, I had hours of footage and 1,800 images to edit, and that is just so many. The more you shoot, the harder it is to make selections and balance the colors and even things out. In the end, you just have to go through and pare it down little by little. Go through all the photos and think about which of these are really the best and eliminate any that you don't love aesthetically or that doesn't help you tell your story. If you have two photos that you like that are really similar, pick based on which is going to pop among the rest of your photo set. You have to think of the photo set as a whole. If you already have a lot of photos where the car occupies 75% of the frame, that can help you narrow down others by going with one where the car only fills 40% of the frame. So those are some of my observations on shooting the M3baru. After doing this trip with this car, it's going to be really hard to do a photo road trip in a regular car and be limited to pavement, or at least limited to being near the road. The thrill of shooting completely in nature, surrounded by wilderness, being able to go wherever you want, park wherever, I think that is my new addiction. Thank you as always for watching. Please like and subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you next time.